Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take all of Chairman Markosik's time. Secretary, thank you for being here. I just wondered if you could give us just a very brief summary of the state of the banks that you regulate now. I mean, how many of them are in a difficult situation? And I might need a little primer on how you grade banks and sort of what that process is. So how are the banks that you regulate doing?
Let me talk about that, because certainly a third of our department falls under what we refer to as depository institutions. That's going to be banks, savings banks, trust companies, and then also credit unions. So anybody who is chartered in the Commonwealth. And let me just put some numbers there, because I think it's an interesting contrast. We regulate about 75% of the banking charters in the Commonwealth, but only about 12% of the credit union charters in the Commonwealth. My guess is, as I get further into my service as a Secretary of Banking and Securities, I'll figure that one out. But that's historically where we are. The good news is, at this point, the depository institutions, both banks and credit unions in the Commonwealth, came through this meltdown in the financial services industry going back into 08 and 09 a lot better than a lot of other states and commonwealths in the country. I think that had a lot to do with the fact that Pennsylvania, because of its generally conservative business practices, never really went as high up out on the go-go times, and as a result had less amount that they had to cover. I can tell you today that about 20% of our banks have some sort of an enforcement action that they are working through. Hopefully we are being prescriptive in that approach and not punitive, so that we want our banks to recover. In the credit union arena, it is just a bit under 10%. So those numbers both would compare favorably with the national averages that would be looked at overall nationally by the FDIC.
Generally, what does it take for a bank to be in that situation where there's an enforcement action against them?
There are two forms of enforcement action. One is what we refer to as an informal action. That can be something like an identified weakness that we agree that simply with a board of directors resolution that they commit to focus on that, and we can track that, referring to it simply as a board resolution. That would be more of an informal action.
Comparable to like an audit finding? Audit
finding that we would in our examination process.
Okay.
And, you know, primarily for us and what we look at, it tends to be things that relate to asset quality, weaknesses in their loan portfolio, weaknesses in their investment portfolio, things that would relate to their operational systems, especially in the information technology, which is a big area. And so those are the informal actions. And then you can get into something that literally is a disclosed, formal, kind of a consent agreement that says, you know, by this time your capital ratios need to be X. By this time you need to change your risk management systems. By this time you need to complete a management audit and upgrade your management team. And so that's when we talk about an enforcement action. It's this range from very informal to something very formal.
Okay. In all three of those examples you said by this time, and that sort of gets to the second half of my question. Knowing how you get on that list, how do you get off that list, and how what's the process? How quickly do you get off it? As quickly as you get on it, or can you?
The issue is, the hope is that the pendulum is reasonably fair both ways. That literally before the even any sort of action is taken, informal action, there's a lot of discussion with management, and they have an opportunity to improve. Conversely, when you have an action that's there, you want to make sure, if you are being prescriptive and you're not just doing it to be punitive, that literally there is a roadmap that we agree to and they agree to, that when they hit these steps, then there is action to relieve those formal, typically moving to an informal action, informal then moving to the removal of that action. And so the good news is we are at the stage where we're coming out of what was the low point, i.e. the highest number of enforcement actions. And the encouraging part is, for several quarters now, we have been having more upgrades in those ratings than downgrades. And so you need to start there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.